Now at first glance, you would think this is just a regular AMX-13. There's nothing off about it. But watch this.
Check this out.
Whoa, what?
This is the Austrian SK-105 Kürassier. The vehicle will definitely catch your eye, especially with the remarkable FL12 turret used on the French AMX-13. But the vehicle is largely unknown, with not many people knowing its history. So I will do that in today's video, but before we start, I just want to thank you all for the immense support I got in the last video. The video managed to get past 70k views, which is just mind-boggling. If you feel like watching it, you can find it in the TanksNStuff playlist, alongside other garbage I made a while back. But now let's get into the video. So let's take a look at what the Austrian army had in their inventory. It had some British charioteer tanks, but it also had American stuff such as the M47 Patton and some Chaffees. Furthermore, it also had some French AMX-13 tanks and even some Russian T-34s. You can imagine that's a logistic nightmare. The SK-105 was developed during the time of the Cold War. The project was developed by Steyr from Vienna in 1965. The Steyr SK-105 was nicknamed Kürassier, which refers to a heavy weapons guy in the infantry. The Kürassiers were actually the heaviest armed soldier Austria had, using special body armor known as cuirass. They were part of the cavalry and used horses on the battlefield. They are supposed to have similar effects on the battlefields as the modern day tank divisions armies have nowadays. The tank was designed to comply with the requirements set by the Austrian army. It was supposed to be a light and maneuverable tank with a capable anti-tank gun. It should also be able to work with the rough terrain of Austria. The hull used for the project was a Steyr 4K 4FA APC hull. This APC was designed by the same company back in 1956. By this point in time, this hull was already in production, so it could easily be used to mount a new turret. The only problem Austria had is they had no turret or gun that would be satisfactory. As the hull was relatively light, they turned to France that already had numerous AMX-13 turrets. These oscillating turrets were unique, but quite a good fit for this new vehicle. There was one problem though when they went to review the mock-up in 1960. Having an AMX-13 turret was a nice idea, but the current hull would not have been able to work with the turret without it flipping over backwards. Therefore, it was decided that the hull needed to be lengthened and the engine was moved to the rear. The turret was light, had an autoloader, but most importantly, carried a nice 105mm anti-tank gun. The first prototype was completed in 1967. It used a heavily modified version of the hull, but it still used a lot of automotive components identical to those used on the troop carrier. Unfortunately, I was unable to find any pictures of the prototype. Production would start around 1969/1970 after the company was absorbed into the now known Steyr Daimler Puch company. It would enter service with the army in 1972. The SK-105 surely looks a bit unique from the outside, but from the inside it's a tank with a classic configuration. It features a driver's compartment at the front, a fighting compartment in the middle, and engine compartment in the rear. The hull upper and lower glasses plates are sloped, providing protection against 20mm armor piercing round from the front and giving all around protection against small arms and snowballs. Add-on armor is available, which gives the vehicle protection against 35mm APDS rounds. The frontal armor is made out of welded RHA steel and is 20mm thick. Keep in mind, it's classified as a light tank. It also has the ability to mount small side skirts. The vehicle uses a torsion bar suspension. It has 5 dual rubber tired road wheels on each side and 3 track return rollers. The vehicle also makes use of hydraulic shock absorbers. Another interesting fact about the vehicle is that it actually uses M24 Chaffee tracks. They are thick rubber tracks, but they do have holes in them for ice spikes. This allows extra grip for the vehicle when operating in icy terrain, as the last thing you want is for your Kürassier to fall down the side of a mountain. The engine and transmission are at the rear of the vehicle. The engine used in the thing is the Steyr 7FA, a 6-cylinder liquid-cooled 4-stroke turbocharged diesel engine, providing 320 horsepower. All in all, the Kürassier is a very mobile tank for sure. It has a top speed of 68 km per hour and operational range of 360 km on the field. As the vehicle is quite light, it also has a good horsepower per ton ratio, sitting at 18.1 respectively. The vehicle isn't amphibious, but it's still a very mobile tank. It can easily work on the mountainous terrain of Austria. It's capable of climbing 75-degree slopes and it's a very flexible vehicle. The vehicle also has a fire extinguisher in case things get spicy. The turret is one many will recognize. It is the Steyr GT1, a turret better known for its use on the AMX-13. Oscillating turrets are not really common, and especially nowadays, but the AMX-13 used it to much success. The turret and other components shared with the French AMX are manufactured under license. The oscillating turret is roughly 40mm thick and houses the 105mm CN-105 G1 rifled gun. The turret model is the FL-12 model. It uses a muzzle-mounted autoloader with 2 revolver-type magazines for the main gun. It has 12 rounds loaded in the magazine, but the vehicle has a total capacity of 42 rounds. The gun is capable of firing all modern NATO rounds, which really help as the old shells it used before were quite outdated. The 105mm gun was very capable of destroying tanks. It has the capability of firing HE, heat and APFSDS rounds. It can also fire smoke rounds and has 6 smoke grenade discharges on the turret. It also has a coaxial 7.62mm MG74 machine gun. Some vehicles also have an MG mounted on the roof of the turret. At the end of the gun barrel you can find a fancy single stage muzzle brake. The oscillating turret is able to provide the vehicle with an elevation angle of 12 degrees and a depression angle of -8 degrees. The gun is not fitted with a stabilizer, it rather uses a laser rangefinder to engage targets. That is one of the big downsides of the vehicle. Furthermore, it is operated by a crew of 3 as the autoloader removes the need for the loader. The driver is located in the driving compartment at the front on the left side. Next to him is ammunition storage and above him is his hatch with the periscopes. There are versions for both day and nighttime driving. The rest of the crew sits in the fighting compartment in the middle. The commander and gunner operate in the turret. The commander is seated on the left while the gunner sits on the right. The commander has his own cupola with 7 periscopes and a periscopic sight. He also has an infrared night sight. The gunner has 2 observational periscopes and a telescopic sight. He has a simple one-piece lifting hatch above him to get in or out of the turret. The crew has a few more tools on the vehicle to use. The vehicle uses the Silas TCV-29 laser rangefinder mounted on the turret roof. They also have a large searchlight on the turret. The gun has a travel lock but no fume extractor. Instead it uses a fixed fan inside of the turret which draws out fumes whenever the guns are fired. The tank can mount camouflage attributes and has room for storage. It also has a radio with long antennas and NPC protection systems. The inside is small, but you can consider it cozy. Now, let's take a look at some interesting variants. The SK-105 is the base production variant. The SK-105A1 has an improved automatic loading system. The A2 builds further on that with it having a new fire control system and a fully electrical loading system. Furthermore, the A2 received upgrades to the drivetrain and engine. The A3 variant improves even more, with it having another new fire control system, a thermal camera and some applique armor on the turret. But most noticeably, it uses a new gun. It uses the 105mm M68 tank gun. You can recognize an A3 variant by its muzzle brake, which is different from the other variants. Furthermore, there is an armored recovery vehicle, the Grijf, and there is an engineering vehicle known as the Pioneer. There also exists a Fahrschultrainer variant of the SK-105, which is a driver training vehicle. Now, these are 2 very wacky vehicles. Online there's barely any information about these things, but luckily, the almighty tank god Mr. Chieftain himself made some videos about them recently. These are 2 prototype vehicles nicknamed the Super Kürassiers. I like that name, it reminds me of my personal favorite tank, the Super Pershing. But that aside, most of the information here will be from the videos made by the Chieftain, so I suggest you go watch those in case you're interested. Links down below. Essentially, these are just upgraded Kürassiers with different turrets. This version has a fully stabilized oscillating turret. Yes, believe it or not. It was built sometimes in the 1980s. It uses an earlier version of the Leopard 2A4 stabilization system. Another interesting thing is that they try to make this oscillating turret fully NPC protected. They used a system which involves overpressure to keep all the nasty stuff outside the vehicle. To keep it short, this system did not work. The turret looks a bit different than the regular Kürassiers. It was redesigned to not only work with a stabilizer, but it was also up-armored to be able to withstand 30mm autocannon fire. This however has never been tested, so we don't know how effective this new turret is. This vehicle also features a hole for the coax and it uses antennas and smoke launchers and similar hatches on the turret roof. There's also a ventilator housing on the roof with loading ports sitting either side. However, there's another! the super duper Kürassier. This thing looks a bit wacky and it's a bit blocky, and the concept behind it was that the Kürassiers needed a new gun. The request was actually submitted by Argentina, and when Austria looked into it, they found out that it might not be that bad of an idea. It would remove the struggle of using different types of ammunition, and this 105mm gun was more powerful than the one used on the standard Kürassiers. One problem though, Austria could not get their hands on a solid gun. So after a thing or two, they got the L7 from Argentina. That's right, it's just an L7 gun with a different but fancy looking muzzle brake and a different fume extractor. So now they had to fit the gun onto the vehicle. Now it's no easy task to upgun a turret, especially a small turret like that of the AMX. But they changed it and made it bigger, and it's worked out, sort of, I suppose. The lower part of the oscillating turret is very similar to the regular Kürassiers, only this version is welded as opposed to the cast turrets. The turret is bigger, in case that wasn't obvious. You can see this especially in the rear, and this was because of the fact that these rounds are much larger in diameter. This did create a problem though. The vehicle was a bit poorly balanced, even when it was loaded. But when it fired all of its shells, it is left with a very heavy gun, making the tank very unbalanced. Another problem was that the gun was pretty much too powerful for the vehicle. They didn't have enough room inside of the vehicle to make the recoil work, and the new muzzle brake wasn't enough. Another thing of note is that the gunner sight is larger than usual. The loading system was also changed. The shells now have to be loaded from the back instead of the top to avoid the crew dying of back problems. The commander's cupola got changed a bit, the turret armor supposedly got upgraded as well, and some more changes were added before this project got shelved. Online there's very little information about these two prototypes, that's why all of this information about these vehicles comes from the Chieftain, once again just saying. The SK-105 Kürassier has actually seen some service. Estimate shows that around 700 units have been produced since 1971. Some of them were used by the Austrian army, but a lot of them were exported to other countries. Austria would ditch them because of the Leopard 2 and because of the fall of oscillating turrets. As oscillating turrets aren't really in fashion at the moment, the tanks have been exported to many nations in Africa and South America. We do know for sure that the Kürassier has taken part in operations with the UN. Regardless of that, we can take a look at the largest customer of the SK-105, Argentina. Argentina has bought around 112 Kürassiers from Austria, but most noticeably made its own variant. Another one? Yes, another one. It's called the Patagon tank. It is a light tank very similar to the SK-105 used by Austria. Only 5 were ever produced due to a lack of funding for the project. The prototype was unveiled on the 22nd of November 2005, but the project was cancelled in late 2008. All in all, the tank is very similar to the regular SK-105. To this day, the Kürassier is still in service with Argentina alongside a handful of other countries such as Morocco, Botswana and Brazil, just to name a few. An interesting side fact is that the Kürassier is named Jagdpanzer, tank destroyer, but in service it is referred to as a light tank. Another fun fact, due to its light weight of 17 tons, it can even be transported via aircraft such as the C-113 Hercules. I don't know how to make reasonable conclusions, but I guess the SK-105 is a very mysterious vehicle. It is definitely a vehicle which has much to offer. From the wacky super variants to the Patagon, I feel like the SK-105 is a bit underappreciated. I feel like it deserves a bit more recognition. While it is basically outclassed by all modern MBTs, this is a light tank, so put some respect on its name, it's doing its best. And I feel like it's kinda unfair to compare this to a T-72 or a Leopard 2, but that's probably just me. Austria may have given up on the SK-105, but its story is far from over, as it's still being produced and used. And you know, that's kinda it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to subscribe, like and share the video. Feel free to check out some other stuff as well. And I hope to see you all again in the next video. Bye, I guess.